"You can't do this to me! I'm your daughter!" she screamed as the officers led her away in handcuffs. I stood frozen, my heart torn between heartbreak and justice. For 66 years, I had lived believing that love could conquer anything until the day I heard my daughter plotting to steal my home and lock me away in a nursing facility. What she didn't know was that the mother she thought was weak had spent one long night turning her pain into a plan. That morning, dressed in my crimson suit, I walked out the door not as a victim, but as a woman ready to reclaim her dignity. And when I returned, nothing in our lives would ever be the same again. You won't believe how far a mother's strength can go when betrayal cuts this deep. My name is Evelyn Hartman, and I'm 66 years old. Last Tuesday afternoon, I was making tea in my quiet little house in Portland, Oregon, when my phone buzzed with a new voice message from my daughter Lauren. I smiled when I saw her name on the screen. She rarely called these days. I pressed play, expecting to hear her usual cheerful voice saying, "Hi Mom, just checking in." But what I heard instead froze the blood in my veins. "Daniel, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore." For a moment, I thought I misheard. My hand trembled, and the cup of tea slipped from my fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. Lauren's voice continued cold and sharp like I had never heard before. "She gets into everything, and on top of that, we're already spending so much money on her. I found a home outside the city. It's cheap, around $800 a month. Once she's there, we can finally live in peace." I felt the air leave my lungs. My daughter, my only child, was talking about me as if I were some burden she needed to throw away. And then came the line that nearly stopped my heart. "Cynthia says she can fix the paperwork. The house is still under Mom's name, but we can transfer it to ours without her even realizing it." Cynthia, her cousin, the one who worked at the county clerk's office. The words echoed in my head like the ticking of a clock counting down to something terrible. My own daughter plotting to steal the only thing I owned, the house I built brick by brick, after years of cleaning other people's floors. And then Lauren laughed. That laugh was worse than the words. It wasn't nervous. It was triumphant. "In a month, Mom will be in the Riverside Care Center and we'll have everything. Finally, no more of that bitter old woman bossing us around." That was the moment I felt something inside me break, something deep, something sacred. For the first time in my life, I wished I hadn't loved so blindly. I sat down on the floor among the shards of glass, and my memories came rushing back, the decades I'd spent sacrificing everything for her. I was 18 when I had Lauren. Her father vanished before she was born. My mother, God rest her soul, used to say, "Evelyn, family is everything. You give your blood if you have to." And I did. I worked 12-hour days cleaning offices downtown. I sold my wedding ring to pay for Lauren's college. I even pawned my mother's sewing machine to buy her textbooks. When she wanted a lavish wedding, I borrowed $10,000 so she could have her dream day, the dress, the flowers, the live band. I believed she deserved everything I never had. And for a while, I thought my sacrifices had been worth it. Lauren would visit every Sunday with her husband Daniel. She'd bring flowers and tell me, "Mom, I'm so lucky to have you." We'd laugh, we'd eat dinner, and I thought I had finally built a peaceful life. But peace can vanish in silence so slowly that you don't even notice the knife until it's already in your back. 3 years ago, Daniel lost his job. That's when the calls began. "Mom, we're a little short this month. Can you help first $1,000, then $2,500, then $3,000? I told myself it was temporary, but it never stopped. Then came the excuses for not visiting. "We're too busy, Mom. We're tired. Next week, I promise." And then stranger things. Doctors showing up at my door saying they were there for routine checkups. Social workers asking about my living conditions, all arranged by Lauren. One evening, she told me gently, "Mom, you've been so forgetful lately. Are you sure you can handle living alone in that big house?" Forgetful me. I still balanced my checkbook by hand every week. I still volunteered at church. But I laughed it off. I didn't realize she was planting seeds, tiny lies, to make me look like a confused old woman. Then a few months ago, she and Daniel said they needed to stay temporarily while their apartment was being renovated. I was thrilled, foolishly believing it would bring us closer again. Instead, they took over everything: my kitchen, my television, my peace. Daniel complained about the plumbing, the old wallpaper, even the smell of my cooking. Lauren began rearranging the furniture, tossing out things I'd kept for decades. "Mom, these plates are ancient," she said once, holding up a set that had belonged to my mother. "Let's get something modern." I didn't argue. I thought I was keeping the peace. But then the whispers started, the ones that stopped the moment I entered the room. The papers Cynthia brought to help them with insurance updates. The way Daniel's tone changed when he thought I wasn't listening. And now, this message. That cursed voice message that revealed everything. I played it again, needing to be sure. And when I heard Lauren laugh about sending me away, about owning everything, something inside me hardened. You see, I may be old, but I'm not stupid. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room, staring at the framed photo of Lauren's college graduation, the day she swore she'd take care of me, just like I had taken care of her. My heart ached, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. By dawn, I knew exactly what I had to do. I took a long shower, put on my crimson pantsuit, the one I'd worn to her wedding, and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't show a fragile old woman. It showed a mother who had been underestimated for far too long. I gathered every document, my property deed, my bank statements, my insurance policies, and slipped them into my leather purse. Then, before leaving, I wrote a note and placed it neatly on the kitchen table. Left early to take care of some personal matters. Be back later. Love, Mom. No more explanations. No more apologies. As I closed the door behind me, a strange calm filled me. The fear that had haunted me all night had turned into something else. Resolve. If my daughter wanted to play games with deceit and manipulation, then fine. This time she'd realize just how dangerous it is to underestimate a woman who built her life from nothing. She thought she could take my home, my dignity, my future. She had no idea that I was about to take everything back, one move at a time. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, I was already standing outside the Portland Central Bank, clutching my purse so tightly my fingers ached. I hadn't slept a single minute, but I'd never felt so awake in my life. Every breath I took carried the weight of betrayal and the fire of purpose. The manager, Susan Clark, recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Hartman, you're here early. Is everything all right?" "Not yet," I said, forcing a calm smile. "But it will be." Inside her glass office, I handed her my ID and asked for every single statement, every transfer, every authorization from the past 6 months. As Susan scrolled through the computer, her cheerful face began to pale. "Mrs. Hartman, your daughter came here a few weeks ago. She had a letter signed by you authorizing her to manage your account." I felt my pulse spike. "A letter, yes." It looked legitimate. "She used it to access your statements several times." "Can I see that letter?" When she placed it in front of me, I knew instantly it wasn't mine. The signature slanted the wrong way, and my name was spelled Eveline instead of Evelyn. A tiny detail, but enough to expose the lie. "This," I said, pointing at the paper, "is a forgery. Cancel every authorization in her name. Now." Susan's hands shook as she nodded. "I'll secure your account immediately. And Mrs. Hartman, I recommend filing a fraud report. This is serious." "I plan to," I said, my voice steady as steel. Within the hour, I had transferred my savings, every cent of the $9,000 I had, to a new account under a new password. I changed my life insurance beneficiary too. No longer Lauren. From that moment on, the Silver Horizon Foundation would inherit everything. My daughter had already inherited enough of my heart. My next stop was the county clerk's office, where Lauren's cousin Cynthia Moore worked. I walked in wearing my crimson suit, pearl earrings gleaming in the morning light, and a smile so polite it could cut glass. "Good morning, Cynthia," I said warmly. "I heard you've been helping my daughter with some paperwork about my house." Cynthia's eyes widened. "Oh, Mrs. Hartman. I wasn't expecting you." She began closing folders on her desk too quickly. I kept my tone casual. "You know me, dear. I just like to stay informed. Why don't you show me what documents you've been working on?" Her lips trembled. "It's just routine verification, that's all." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Cynthia, let's not waste each other's time. I already know everything. The forged documents, the fake medical reports, the plan to transfer my house to Lauren and Daniel. And before you deny it, I slid my phone onto her desk and pressed play. The voice memo filled the room. Cynthia says she can fix the paperwork. The house is in her name, but we can transfer it without her realizing. Cynthia's face drained of color. She sank into her chair like a balloon losing air. Oh, God. Mrs. Hartman, please don't ruin me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I have 3 kids. Lauren told me you were getting confused, that it was for your own good. For my own good, I said softly. You were helping her steal the roof over my head. I placed a small recorder on her desk. You have 2 options. Either help me undo everything you've done, or I walk into your supervisor's office right now. She hesitated for a long second, then whispered, What do you need me to do for the next 2 hours? Cynthia printed, stamped, and signed her way through a full confession. She canceled every fraudulent record and handed me copies of the false medical reports and property documents they had prepared. When I left that office, I had evidence enough to bury them legally. My next visit was to attorney Jonathan Reed, one of the most respected lawyers in Portland. His office overlooked the Willamette River, and as I sat across from him, the morning sunlight caught the silver in my hair. Mr. Reed, I began placing the documents before him. I need to stop a crime before it destroys my life. He listened without interrupting, his brow furrowing deeper with every page he turned. Mrs. Hartman, this is one of the clearest cases of elder fraud I've ever seen. We can press both civil and criminal charges. The evidence is overwhelming. I nodded. Then do it. File everything. But I want them to find out the truth, the hard way, face to face. He looked at me almost admiringly. You're a brave woman, Mrs. Hartman. No, I replied. I'm just a mother who's done being fooled. By the next morning, everything was ready. The police reports, the notary, the formal complaint. And that's when I decided to end this in my own living room. At 10:00 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to see Attorney Reed, 2 uniformed officers, and a public notary standing behind him. Their presence alone made the air electric. Inside, Lauren and Daniel were sitting on the couch, casually eating breakfast. Mom Lauren frowned. What's going on? Who are these people? I walked to the center of the living room, calm and composed. Why don't you sit down, sweetheart? You'll want to hear this. The officers positioned themselves near the door as Attorney Reed placed a thick folder on the coffee table. Mr. and Mrs. Wells, he began, we have irrefutable evidence of fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit illegal property transfer against Mrs. Evelyn Hartman. Lauren's face went white. That's insane. We'd never. I raised my phone and hit play. My daughter's voice filled the room. Daniel, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. Cynthia can transfer the property without her realizing. Stop it! Lauren shouted, lunging forward. But one of the officers stepped between us. Sit down, I told her, my voice sharper than she'd ever heard. You made me listen to that message 100 times. Now it's your turn. Her eyes filled with tears as the recording continued, her laughter echoing her words, slicing through the silence. Daniel's hand gripped the couch, knuckles white. This is a setup, he said through clenched teeth. You're twisting everything. Oh, really? Attorney Reed said, pulling out another document. This is a signed statement from Cynthia Moore confirming your involvement. She describes exactly how you plan to forge the medical reports and transfer Mrs. Hartman's property. Lauren turned to Daniel, her voice breaking. You said she'd never find out. He glared at her. You're the one who sent the message to the wrong phone. The officers exchanged a look. Even they seemed taken aback by the level of deceit unfolding before them. Do you know what's worse than betrayal? I said quietly. Hearing your own child laugh about it. Attorney Reed presented the final piece, a new medical evaluation from Dr. Ethan Blake. Mrs. Hartman underwent a full cognitive assessment yesterday, he explained. She is in perfect mental condition. All prior claims of confusion were fabricated. The truth hit them like a storm. Lauren began to sob uncontrollably. Daniel just sat there staring at the floor, his arrogance gone. Mom, please, she begged. We were desperate. We had debts. I didn't mean to hurt you. I looked at her, feeling something colder than anger clarity. You didn't just hurt me, Lauren. You tried to erase me. When the officers asked if I wanted to proceed with the arrests, I hesitated for a long moment. The image of Lauren as a little girl flashed in my mind, the way she used to hold my hand, the sound of her laugh, before greed changed it. But then I remembered her voice in that message, the one that called me, that bitter old woman. Yes, I said firmly. Do your job. As they handcuffed my daughter, she cried out, "You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter." I stared at her and whispered, "Then you should have remembered that before you stopped being mine." When the door closed behind them, the silence was deafening. For the first time in months, I could hear the sound of my own breathing without fear. That night, as the city lights shimmered outside my window, I realized something profound. Sometimes the only way to survive betrayal is to burn the lies down to ash. And from that ash rebuild yourself stronger than ever. The morning after my daughter was arrested, my house was so quiet, it almost didn't feel real. The same rooms that had once been filled with whispered lies and false affection were now filled only with sunlight and the hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of deceit pressing against my chest. Still beneath the relief, there was a deep ache I couldn't silence. Because no matter how much wrong she'd done, Lauren was still my daughter, my only child, the person I had once believed would carry my love into the next generation. The legal process moved quickly. Attorney Reed handled everything with calm precision. Within weeks, Lauren and Daniel's guilt was undeniable. But when the court offered me two options, press full criminal charges that could send them to prison, or agree to a civil settlement that would make them pay restitution and publicly confess, I didn't hesitate long. I don't want revenge, I told Jonathan. I want truth, and I want peace. So we agreed on a settlement that would change everything. Lauren and Daniel had to return every dollar they stole, pay damages, and sign a written public confession admitting their lies about my mental health and their attempt to defraud me. That confession was printed in the same local papers where they had once tried to smear my name. The headline read, "Daughter and husband admit to fraud against elderly mother." It was humiliating for them, but it gave me my dignity back. Still, when I saw their names in black and white, something inside me broke again. I didn't feel triumph. I felt grief, because behind every victory born of justice, there's still a wound that justice can't heal. I sold the old house soon after. Too many memories lingered in the walls, memories of laughter that had turned to lies. With the proceeds, I bought a smaller sunlit apartment in a quiet senior community just outside the city called Maplewood Residences. The people there welcomed me like family. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a burden or a target. I felt seen. It was there that I met Pat Owens, a retired nurse with wild gray curls and a voice full of laughter. She was the kind of woman who could make a grocery run sound like an adventure. She became my closest friend. Every morning, we'd walk through the gardens, talk about our pasts, and remind each other that even broken hearts can still beat with purpose. But I needed more than friendship, I needed meaning. So I joined the Silver Horizon Foundation, the very charity I had named as the beneficiary of my life insurance. I began volunteering 3 days a week, helping elderly people who, like me, had been betrayed or forgotten by their families. Some came to us with empty pockets and trembling hands, unsure if they still mattered. And every time I looked into their eyes, I saw myself. One afternoon, I met Mr. Douglas, a 74-year-old man whose son had emptied his bank account. He sat across from me, hands shaking, unable to speak through the tears. I reached across the table and said softly, "You're not alone. You're still worth something. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise." He squeezed my hand, and in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. All the pain that had once threatened to destroy me was now helping someone else survive. Months passed, and life slowly found rhythm again. I painted, I laughed, I danced in the community room on Saturday nights with people who'd also learned how to start over. And yet, a small part of me still wondered about Lauren. Then, one autumn afternoon, a letter arrived. I stared at the envelope for 3 days before opening it. Inside was Lauren's handwriting, shaky, uneven, full of hesitation. "Dear Mom," it began. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Every day I wake up and remember what I did, and it feels like a nightmare I can't wake from. I've started therapy. I'm working 2 jobs now. I don't want your money. I don't want anything. I just needed to say, I'm sorry, not because I expect you to forgive me, but because I finally understand the depth of the hurt I caused. I don't deserve to call you Mom, but I hope somewhere in your heart you still wish me peace." I cried when I finished reading it. Not angry tears, just sorrow, pure and heavy. I sat there until the sun went down, thinking about how love doesn't just disappear, even when trust is shattered. That night, I wrote back, "Lauren, I accept your apology. I forgive you not for what you did, but for what it cost us both. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of the poison so it can't destroy us anymore. I hope you build a life of honesty and compassion. I wish you peace." I sealed the letter, knowing I didn't want a relationship, but I also didn't want hatred living in my heart any longer. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. A year later, I stood on the balcony of my Maplewood apartment, watching the sunrise spill gold over the Oregon hills. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the betrayal, the loss, the courage it took to stand up for myself when no one else would. I realized that survival wasn't the ending of my story. Healing was. At 67, I had rebuilt my life from ashes, not to prove anything to my daughter, but to prove it to myself that I was still capable of joy, of love, of hope. Now, every Wednesday afternoon, I lead a support group at Silver Horizon for seniors learning to start over. I tell them we can't control what people do to us, but we can decide what we'll do with the pain they leave behind. Some cry, some laugh, some just sit quietly, but all of them in their own way begin to heal. And I suppose that's what my story really is. Not a tragedy, not even a revenge tale, but a lesson about dignity, about how love, even when betrayed, can be reborn as strength. One evening, after a group meeting, Pat said to me, "You know, Evelyn, you could have become bitter after what happened, but instead, you became light for others." I smiled. Maybe that's what surviving means, not just living, but shining, even when someone tried to put your fire out. As I walked home through the garden, the lamps glowing soft and golden, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. True peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's love or apology. Because I had finally learned that family isn't always blood, it's the people who remind you you're still worth loving. If you're listening to this story tonight, I want you to remember this. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how heavy the loss, it's never too late to choose yourself. To stand up. To heal. To forgive, not for them, but for you. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the love that says, I will not let your cruelty define who I am. And I will never forget that truth. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption. But we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. How did this story make you feel? Do you believe Evelyn did the right thing by forgiving her daughter in the end? If you were in her place, could you forgive? If you enjoyed the story, comment 100 below and tell me which country you're watching from. Don't forget to share this video so more people can hear Evelyn's story of courage, justice, and healing.